What's so scary about rubber gloves? I don't know, but it just is. Hello Booktube, it's Marilyn Maya, and welcome back to my channel. Well, this is my March mystery wrap-up, and I only have 4 books. But this was a strange month, so I do have a couple of books that I'm going to talk about in my March wrap-up. In fact, I'm going to stop doing wrap-ups because I think it's hard to remember everything you've read in a month, even if it's only 4 books. So I might do just the Friday reads from now on. But let's get to the books that I read. I'm a co-host of March Mystery Madness, so 4 books in a month? But I do have another 3 that I'm going to talk about in a later video, or maybe even more, because I sort of started and stopped. The first book I read, and I said to myself, what the heck is this? Was a book by Dorothy Gilman, Uncertain Voyage. It was written in 1967, and I gave it 3 stars, even though it's a very strange book. It's kind of supposed to be a spy. You know, this was 67, so this is when, you know, Ian Fleming, the Bond, James Bond came out, and yeah, so it has that vibe to it, but it really isn't about a mystery. Unless a mystery doesn't have an ending in it, it could be a romance, but that's never followed up either. It could be suspense. It sort of is suspense, but is it a travelogue? I think it's more of a memoir, believe it or not. Let me tell you what I think it's about. So the protagonist is Melissa. She's a 20-something-year-old, very naive woman. She got married at 16. They used to call it eloped. And she's been married for maybe 10 years. And she just went through a divorce and decided to use some of the money that her father had given her in stocks, and went on a trip to Europe by boat. And while she's on the boat, well, before I mention that, I better say that she just got out of a psychiatric ward as well, and is seeing a psychiatrist who told her that she has to face herself and travel and go on a trip, I think. This might sound very weird, and it is very weird. Let me just tell you a short synopsis of the actual plot, and that is that while she's on the boat feeling miserable because she's all alone and everyone's in a couple and no one's speaking to her and she's looking for a man, all this I really didn't like. And she does really stupid things. Okay, one of the biggest, stupidest things that she did was there was a man who told her to meet her on a top deck, and she's all excited that it's going to be a romance, and he asks her to deliver a book because he knows she's going to Mallorca, and he wants her to deliver a book for him. This is where she made her first mistake. She said yes. But she's thinking about her own problems and how, she's so unhappy, and it's very, very boring in some ways, and you really don't like her. So that's not a good start. And so she takes this book from him, and he tells her to memorize this address of a bookstore in Mallorca where she's going to deliver the book, and tell the proprietor there that to look at a certain page, and there's a certain message that she's supposed to give them. So from there, the plot ensues, if there is a plot in it. So she stops in Copenhagen, her first stop. She meets a man. She has an affair with him. She knows he's married. Already, if you don't like this, you should stop, because it's not really about the romance. But she thinks she can't feel anything. So she needs a man to complete her. And this is kind of where the plot is really going. And did I tell you that Dorothy Gilman wrote the Mrs. Polifax books that was so popular in the 60s and 70s? Well, she did. But in this book, there's no Mrs. Polifax. There's Melissa, who's young. So when I said the plot ensues, she goes to these different ports of call. And one is Paris. She's supposedly a painter. Yet she's so miserable in Paris because she misses the man she met in Copenhagen, which I hated that part too, because she's a painter. She goes to all these museums. Someone is following her, and she's just miserable. Then she goes to the third port of call. Well, there was Copenhagen, Paris, and Mallorca. And in Mallorca, the plot comes to a kind of scary part. There's people following her, and I won't tell you too much because I don't want to spoil, but I will say one thing. This mystery or this spy novel, you never know what happens at the end. You don't know what happens with the romance. You don't know what happens with the book. You don't know what happens, period. But one thing you do notice, she comes to a kind of realization. And that's what the book, I figured out, is about. Melissa is going to find out who she is at the end. And she's going to live in the moment and not be a person who's afraid of herself, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's sort of a coming of age book, or some kind of living in the now kind of book. So I still can't figure out what it's about. But oddly, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it because I was kind of that girl in 72, and I went on a boat by myself. One of the worst things she says in this book, and I know I'm talking too much about a book that's only 100 and something pages, but she says, you know, when all this is happening to her, she says, well, I could go home. Yes, go home. But she says, I wouldn't know how to arrange that because my travel agent arranged it for me. Come on. That was a little ridiculous. And I said, are you stupid? As many of my Brooklyn people would say. I don't know what to think of this book. But it's amusing. If anything else, it's amusing. But don't expect any kind of resolutions to anything. So that's Uncertain Voyage. I gave it 3 stars. Maybe I should have gave it less. But it's silly, but it's kind of maybe a young adult book. And I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about it. So I don't hate it. The next book I read is Lady in the Lake by Raymond Chandler. I read this with one of my subscribers, Nathan. Hi, Nathan. Now, this is a hard-boiled mystery, and it's not really totally my thing, but it's kind of more my thing than the spy stuff is. And this is about, it's mostly about Raymond Chandler, or his nemesis, not his nemesis, his creation, Marlowe, Philip Marlowe. I love Philip Marlowe. He's so cool. And he's a private detective, as we all know. And in this book, he is hired to find out what happened to a rich man. His name is Kingsley's wife, who did she disappear with a rake, gigolo, or did something else happen because she kind of disappeared? So he's hiring Philip Marlowe to find out what happened to his wife. So in this book, there's 3 women, basically. And 2 of them are women that we don't know what's going to happen to them. And the other woman is sort of a love interest, sort of, or at least someone that he's interested in. Philip Marlowe, that is. And what I loved about this book, all right, the plot wasn't that wonderful. Women aren't exactly treated well in this book, but you expect this. This was written in 1943. So we have a lot of war stuff in this book that I really loved, because it's taking place during World War II. And we have a lot of Los Angeles stuff in the 40s. And if you really like that, I do. And I didn't know what a rubber sidewalk was. I had to look it up. So in the 40s, they sort of took out these sidewalks that were made of rubber, and they put in concrete. And in the beginning of this book, there's a wonderful sentence that I want to read you. I want to read you the first paragraph, because it really made me want to read more. The Trelawney building was and is on Olive Street near 6 on the west side. The sidewalk in front of it had been built of black and white rubber blocks. They were taking them up now to give to the government, and a hatless pale man with a face like a building superintendent was watching the work and looking as if it was breaking his heart. That's a great beginning. Wonderful sentence. We get a really good feeling about, a good sense of what Los Angeles was in the 1940s. And the way he writes is really great too. Like I said, the plot was so-so, but everything else about the book, really, the characterizations, the setting, everything really, I gave it 4 stars. The next book, and a little higher, maybe 4.5 stars, is P.D. James, The Private Patient. This is not The Silent Patient, the thriller that came out just a few years ago. This was written, and I'll tell you in a second. Well, it's 2008. So it's one of her latter books. And I love P.D. James. I didn't love everything that she wrote, but she's just a master at what she does. So, and this has one of the gloves that I talked about in the beginning. These are latex gloves. So what is this book about? This is a closed circle manor house mystery that she does so well. So now in the beginning, one thing I didn't like was that we know who gets killed right from the beginning. And her name is Rhoda. She's an investigative journalist. And the thing about it was that I didn't like this beginning so much, because I started liking her. And she's killed off right away. And it says, what I wrote down was that she's a patient, and she's engaged. She's got a scar, and the scar is a result of something that happened to her in her childhood. So she becomes a very semi-sympathetic character, and we want to know, and we're in her head. And from the beginning, so the doctor asks her why, after 34 years, does she want to take the scar away? And she said, because I don't need it anymore. And we get to know what happened to her. And then before, what transpires is that the operation is a success, but the patient dies. So, that kind of threw me off a little bit. But then we meet the other people in this house, and one of them is the plastic surgeon, who has this manor house where he does plastic surgery work on the side beside the one he does. I guess they don't mention it, but for the NHS. So he has he's a very interesting character. We don't know what to make of him. And we meet all these people that live in the house. And that's all I'll say about it, except there's going to be another death, as we know. And it's a lot of twists and turns. I was very surprised at the ending. It's quite a big book, even though this is a large print book. It took a while to get to it. I really enjoyed it. I give it 4.5 stars. So what was my favorite book so far of the month? And that's Ruth Rendell. And here's the other, it's called Shake Hands Forever. And in this book, it's an Inspector Wexford mystery. I love Inspector Wexford. I said this in my last, in my haul of this book, in fact. And so what is it about? The bed is neatly made, and there's a woman on top of the bed, neatly strangled. And that's how the book starts. So Angela Hathall, she's deeply, according to everybody, she was deeply in love with her husband and far too paranoid to invite an unknown person into their home. So who managed to gain entry and kill her? So that's where, where we start in this book. And her husband is not even living with her for the whole week. He lives in London. She lives in a small town. So the whole story, you might think, is about how she died. And it is, but it's so much more than that. First of all, Wexford, he's a happily married man, and he meets sort of a love interest in this book. Not only that, but he's so convinced that the husband killed her, even though he wasn't there at the time. And he gets obsessed with this, with the husband. He gets obsessed with a woman, and that's where the fun lies in this book. And there's a wonderful twist at the end as well. And Shake Hands Forever is part of a poem. And I'm going to read you that right now. The poem Shake Hands Forever was written by Michael Drayton, Sonnet 61, from his idea. I'm not going to read the whole poem, but some of it has to do with the title. So, since there is no help, come let us kiss and part. Nay, I have done. You get no more of me, and I am glad, yea, glad with all my heart, that thus so cleanly I myself can free. Shake hands forever, cancel all our vows, and when we meet at any time again, be it not seen in either of our brows. So that's where the title comes from, and it does deal with the plot of this book. That's all I'll say. There's a wonderful twist at the end. I want to give it 5 stars, but I'm going to give it 4 3/4 stars because I can. So these are the 4 books that I read. I'm still reading other mysteries for March Mystery Madness. Of course, they're going to come out in April, but I'm still reading Sue Grafton's X and Ordeal of Innocence by Agatha Christie, which I'm enjoying immensely. I just wanted to say I really had a wonderful time with March Mystery Madness, even though I didn't read as many books as I wanted to. I watched so much of BookTube. Janelle of Too Fond of Books, she did a video every single day. Yay! To Janelle, because I got so many good recommendations and so much fun with her M&M game, and so many other booktubers who have given me wonderful recommendations. And some of them weren't hosts either. So I hope you enjoyed March Mystery Madness, and I hope you enjoyed my video today. Please comment and tell me what you think of any of these books. Have you read any of these books? And please like. I really enjoy when you make a comment and like my video. It makes me feel so warm inside. And until we meet again in another video, I want to thank everyone for all their comments and likes, and my new subscribers and my friends that I've met that are buddy reading books with me and are just sending me Voxer messages, and it's just such a wonderful hobby that I have here. So thank you so much, and until we meet again, shaka, aloha.